right, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here. And of course, I'm joined as always with my co-hosts, Jimmy Marion and Darian Smith. And guys, we've got a loaded episode for you guys today. UAB football recruiting is heating up. It's very exciting times on the South Side. But before we get into that, this episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast is brought to you by Cahaba Brewing Company. And shout out to Cahaba Brewing Company. Their strawberry blonde, guys, if you have not had the chance to taste that beer, it is really good. Like I highly recommend all their, the strawberry blonde, the blood orange blonde, but this strawberry blonde, in fact, I got a can of it. Hopefully, okay, there we go. It's not open. It's too early. But I love, after I mow my lawn, it's become a staple in our household. So shout out to Cahaba Brewing Company. Thank you again for sponsoring the Blazer Victory Podcast. And if you guys have not tried the Strawberry Blonde, you can go down to the tap room at Cahaba, or you can go to your Piggly Wiggly or Publix or pretty much local supermarket, and hopefully they should have that in stock. But this Sunday is Mother's Day, so we kind of wanted to start off this episode. We know we have a lot of mothers that listen to the Blazer Victory Podcast. My wife included, and Shaniqua and Natalie. Shout out to all the moms, my mother-in-law, Sherry, my mom, Robin. Just shout out to all the moms that really continue to hold it down for our families. Thank you again, and happy Mother's Day this Sunday. But speaking of Mother's Day, Cahaba Brewing Company this Saturday is going to have a Mother's Day market from 12 to 5. So if y'all can, make it out there. And if you make it out there, tell them you heard about Cahaba from the Blazer Victory Podcast. Next line of business. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, Blazer Victory Podcast YouTube channel, give us a follow at BlazerPod. And Darren, we got to talk about the job Jimmy's been doing on that YouTube channel. Shorts left and right, man. Killing it, Jimmy. You're killing it, man. So.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite parts of the whole YouTube channel. I'll wake up, or if you don't send us something, I'll wake up and be like, oh, Jimmy Short is here. It's short, sweet, concise, packed with information, and it gets it out really, really good. It's just, you get all the information you need in a minute. So yes. for a Blazer fan that doesn't have a lot of time or just want to get a quick synopsis of what the show may be, either Patreon or free show, I highly recommend just tuning in to see Jimmy cook up something real quick, boom, boom, and then it just leads you on into the show really well. And I think it's something to check out. It piques interest, right? It piques interest really well. So good job on that, Chef Jimmy.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Yeah, y'all do us a favor, listeners. Drop a comment in today's episode and let us know what you think about the shorts, and let us know what kind of content you would like to have if you're enjoying the shorts. So, yeah, but appreciate everybody that's liked the videos and made some comments on there, and hopefully we'll have many more to come.
Yes, and the journey to 200 subscribers continues for the Blazer Victory Podcast. We are currently at 164. So, again, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, those shorts, you're only going to get that on YouTube. And, we see all the people asking on Twitter and Facebook about a recent commit. Hey, the information is there for you, and it's free. So, again, subscribe to our YouTube channel at BlazerPod. But, guys, we got to talk about this heating up UAB football recruiting. Now, we definitely have two recent commits from Youngstown State. And I am sure the minute this episode is going to be dropped, we probably might have another one, and if not soon, going to be later in this week. But just exciting times for UAB football recruiting, and we have to talk about it. We talked a little bit on it on the Patreon feed about some of these guys, but I definitely want to hone in on the two recent commits. And let's start here with Troy Jakubek coming in from Youngstown State, a.k.a. the King Penguin that we said on the Blazer Victory Podcast Patreon. But Jimmy, can you give us just some quick thoughts on Troy Jakubek and just the slew of offers that this guy had and that he picked UAB over those teams?
Yeah, Jakubek's one of those guys that when he entered the transfer portal, he was getting a ton of interest. And he did have solidified offers from an Iowa State and a Kansas State. And, boy, was that news of the Jakubek commitment big, because we had recorded a Patreon episode maybe a day prior where, I was saying, hey, I'm shook by these recent departures, whether it be a Colby Dempsey or a Mac McWilliams, and just the void that would be potentially there in that cornerback room. And so, yeah, Jackie Beck's a guy. Speaking of the shorts, I talked about him a little bit and just how much games he had played in his career at Youngstown State. We talked a little bit about Darian, what Darian observed in film, which I'm sure he'll be able to touch base on here as well. But yeah, this was a guy that was highly touted. Steve Irvine, in his Birmingham Banner article, I think he had mentioned that Jack Beck was getting interest from 50 different programs. So, in the transfer portal, you may hear of guys or see of guys that are posting actively what offers they're getting. He may have had more quote unquote power conference offers than just those, and he certainly had more interest than just those schools. So it was a big time victory, if you will, for the UAB football team.
And Jimmy, I'm so glad you mentioned the departing transfers. That's something that we did bring up on the Patreon last week with Matt McWilliams and Colby Dempsey entering the transfer portal, departing UAB. We were kind of down right now. Mac McWilliams, we know what he's done. We were so excited to continue to see what he did and Colby Dempsey did on the field in year 2 in the AAC. But we were kind of down in the dumps a little bit, but we said if we can get a couple of these guys who we mentioned on the Patreon, then we would feel better. And correct me if I'm wrong, Darian, but Troy Jakubek was that number one. Like, hey, we want him out of all of them.
Yeah, even before the departures, we learned about him. This was the number one guy I wanted anyway. I just wanted to make that clear because just looking at his film, right? First, you see his experience, like all the games played, all the time on the field. He already comes. He's a vet, right? He's a proven vet. He didn't get those offers and that interest for no reason. It's the size, 6'1", 190. And we struggled with that. Then our biggest corner, BJ Mays, he entered the transfer portal, a couple months ago. And of course, with the departures, especially with 2 starters, 3 starters basically with Mays, it was a huge void. But now you have this talent that's, I know one thing that people want to ask is like, is he better? Is he better than D-Mac? Is he better than? We'll see. Everything is proven on the field. I can't tell you if he's better or not. So I don't like to do the comparison, right? I don't like to do the comparison thing because you have to prove that D-Mac and Kobe are very good players. What I can tell you is just looking at this film in the vacuum, not comparing to anyone. I love this film. I love how he moves. I love how he breaks on the ball. I love how he stays in phase and he runs with receivers. If you try to do a one-on-one jump ball against him with his size and his instincts, he gets up, he make plays, he swats the ball away, has good hips, moves laterally really well, and is physical. He made tackles the second half of his highlight film. And these are highlights. I'm not watching the whole game. I'm just watching highlights, just letting you know. But he's physical. He's sitting the edge as a corner, coming down, making the tackle on running backs. You need that, right? We had so many missed tackles last year, especially on the outside. So I really love this pickup. I really feel like it helps us fill in this void. And so that's one. It's not that you just pick up DBs. People say just go get a DB. Just go. No, you don't want to just pick up anybody. You want to pick up somebody that's going to be able to play, not just play but make plays, be a difference maker out there, right? And I think people forget that we do have a guy named Ricky Lee on the team in his second year, right? He was a stud as a freshman, and I'm excited about him being able to actually start, right? I was wondering last year, man, after the season, I was like, bro, we have to get him on the field. Like, he has to start somewhere. And now, just to see him being able to, I think he'll be able to hold that starting corner spot down. I do think we need to bring in at least a corner or 2 more for maybe the nickel spot. We brought in, and this is a nice transition over to Tyjon Jones. He's going to be another guy competing to start. and we brought in 2 safety transfers already that they both have been doing really well. So what I'm excited about is how we've managed to turn these things that could be bleak, and we've managed to turn them into some shining spots to where I'm excited to see how they perform next year, especially if we continue on this trajectory we've been going in recruiting.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great transition into Tyjon Jones. And guys, I do want to, before we mention Tyjon Jones or talk about Tyjon Jones, I can see a little bit of the pushback of just the average or casual UAB fan saying, well, why are we replacing, 2 guys that are departing with just some FCS transfers? But guys, these are really good players, and Youngstown State is a solid FCS program year in and year out. And what Jimmy just mentioned, with Jackie Beck's looking at his P5 or P4 offers, whatever we want to call it, with Iowa State and, others, like these are talented guys that are going to come in and should be able to make an instant impact on this UAB defense. And what was one of the things that we kind of struggled with last year on the defensive side of the ball was physicality. And these guys really bring in the physicality. And so hopefully both of these guys can step in right away. But Jimmy, can you tell
John,
Darren? Yeah.
I'll ask you this real quick. In a vacuum, I'm not saying who's the better player. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying corner. Which corner that we had the best year, just the best year last year, corner wise? Probably BJ Mays, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
As far as just being consistent.
And he's gone now, yeah.
But my whole point to that was, and again, make sure I clarify, he had the better season consistency wise, better season, not better player. Before somebody starts saying, "Oh, somebody said he was the better." So, what I bring that point up to say, what school did he come from? Right, it came from an FCS program.
Yeah, incarnate word.
It's all about how you evaluate talent, not what school they came from. That's the dumbest thing. If that was the case, all of the NFL guys would come straight from
Alabama, Ohio State,
they all be Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Michigan guys, right? So I just want people to know that talent evaluation is a much different game than with the casual eye a lot of times than what you can see.
Yeah, and hey, and shout out to this recruiting staff. I mean, they're evaluating them really well. When you look at and UAB offers and then instantly Iowa State offers, these guys, that shows that the evaluation is good. Now, of course, as you said earlier, Darren, we got to see him hit the field, and it's what you do on the field that really matters. But all things do point to positive with these 2 recent commits. And Jimmy, tell the listeners about Tyjon Jones also coming in from Youngstown State.
I'm so glad that John tossed that, alley-oop up to Darren, that he caught that one, because that's exactly where my head was going to, as well as we'll think about a BJ Mays and where he came from. So he went from an incarnate word to UAB to Texas A&M, where now he's competing for playing time in the SEC. And I think Darren had brought up a guy like Jared Verse. I know it's a different position, but a similar situation from Albany to Florida State to the NFL. So yeah, I mean, I'll say this, for people that don't follow like recruiting, that don't, bring it all together, they don't watch the film and stuff, I can understand why they might be saying, why is UAB going after an FCS transfer? But you look at a school like Alabama, it makes me think about, there's probably Alabama fans last year that were like, why is Alabama going and getting a safety from UAB? He's been playing in Conference USA. Look what Jalen Key did for Alabama this year, and he was able to get drafted himself. So you got to look at what the players bringing to the table. What the film shows you, what just the statistics are telling you. And Tyjon Jones, transition to him is just like Jackie Beck. He's had a lot of games played. I think it's around 35 career games played, 4 years at Youngstown State where he was developed, and he contributed each and every single season. Like Jackie Beck, who had 109 career tackles, this guy had 98 career tackles. So just a whole slew of production at their prior stop, and just like Jackie Beck too, Tyjon Jones had his best season. He's coming off his best season statistically in 2023. 42 of those tackles, 1.5 TFLs, 2 picks. Played in all 12 games. We talked about it on the short, but we had a game at Ohio State. He was credited with 5 total tackles. So, and something I didn't know was, and I think I read this in the Steve Irvine Birmingham Banner article, was that Tyjon Jones also visited West Virginia. So he may have not had an offer, who knows, but he at least had enough interest to take a visit to West Virginia. And I do want to take a moment. I know we're sharing some love today. Take a moment, share some love with Cole Peterson, Director of Football Operations at UAB. Sometimes you got to wear a lot of hats. And this is a great example of that, where Cole Peterson's gone out and he's utilizing his networking and his connections to help bring talent to this UAB football team. Both of these guys are known by Cole Peterson because Cole Peterson, prior to UAB, was at Youngstown State. And so he was aware of both of these guys. There's another staffer, I think it's Colt Jameson, who might be in his first year at UAB, who's also from Youngstown State. So we like to talk about connecting the dots from a recruiting perspective, and just wanted to share that, Cole Peterson may not be the quote unquote primary recruiter for these guys, may not be the position coach, but he's someone that's, getting them on campus. He's getting them to pick up the phone. He's creating that initial interest, and he can speak to what their contributions were at Youngstown State off the field, just as much as someone can see what it was like on the field. So shout out to him and for this staff for picking up 2 high quality DBs to add to this hopefully much improved UAB secondary.
And Jimmy, real quick, what has Trent and this staff talked about since the minute they got to UAB? It's all about building relationships and have a positive relationship with these kids and with the other programs. So I'm super glad that you mentioned Cole. Shout out to Cole. That's my boy. Always welcomes me at the facility. Mad love, mad respect for that guy. But definitely wanted to.
Jimmy and John, y'all, you just spoke on relationships, and I want to go back to Steve's article, signing Jackie Beck. He said that on the pitch to come to UAB, he said, I don't know, it was just different. It felt more genuine, the pitch. So it's all about being genuine and being real and thorough. We might not have the NIL money. We might not have everything from these P5, whatever it is called nowadays. But what we have is genuineness. We have proven track record of development, right? And we have playing time available, especially on the defensive end, the defensive side. So you tell them, hey, you come in, compete, you can start. We're going to develop you, and we're going to put you in position to hopefully get drafted. That's all you can really promise instead of trying to bring a guy in for dip or something like that. Just be real with them, let them know what it is. So that was my favorite part of that whole article, just knowing that the staff has mastered the ability to be genuine, whether you get the guy or not. It's still relationships that's built in, and it's open. And I'm gonna circle back. I'm gonna just touch on this real quick. Once you develop those relationships, and you have guys like D-Mac and Kobe that enter the portal, right? As long as you're real, if you love those kids, you genuinely support them, they might say, hey, man, I was emotional at the time. I was just kind of trying to test the water, see what's out there. If you would have me, I would like to come back. And if that relationship sustains and if it's genuine, you would say, hey, come on back. We want you here, brother. So all I'm saying with them two, or one, I don't know how they feel. I don't know how it went down. I don't know if it was sour grapes, blah, blah, blah. But it ain't over until it's over, right? Until they sign somewhere else, I wouldn't just turn down the possibility of them maybe coming back. I haven't heard anything about them returning. Let's be clear. I'm just speaking on the power of relationships and how it could work out.
You remember Trey Shropshire? Didn't he go into the transfer portal like twice and came back? So
Yes.
it's
Hey,
possible.
that's a good one. I forgot about that. That's
Yeah,
good. Good. Good.
in and out, in and out.
Oh man. Well, Jimmy, why not tell the listeners about Tyjon Jones? I know we touched on the Patreon, but just for those that are not Patreon subscribers, give a little background about Tyjon Jones, about
Yeah,
his offers yeah.
yeah. He most recently had visited West Virginia prior to UAB. That was something I didn't know about. Had quite a career at Youngstown State, almost 100 career tackles, 4 seasons played back there in the same secondary with Jack Hubeck. So he's someone that I know. Darian, I don't think we talked about just what you kind of noticed on film about him. So that might be something we want to touch base on. But he had his best season this past year at Youngstown State. So, anywho, Darren, what did you see on the film?
Yeah, I saw a guy that can be physical, that can play bigger than what he is. I saw a guy that's a veteran that is reliable, is what I saw. I saw a guy that's in the right spots, and when he's in those spots, he typically tends to make the plays that's required of him in those spots. And that's something that we lacked last year. A lot of times, we had guys out of position. Even when they were in position, they didn't make the play, right? So you want to kind of sure up those weaknesses, and you want to tackle them. You want to tackle the weaknesses like head on, right? You want to say this was our problem. We need a player that can come in and help us with X, Y, Z, whatever that is. So I think he's a guy that's going to come in. I'm excited to see. I am excited to see the safety position battle, the safety and the star, and how it's going to work out there. I'm excited to see that because last year I was like, running kind of thin here, right? Like, and we ended up what we ended up with. It was a scramble, right? We were moving guys around. We probably had to take one of the Miller twins. We had to move him down the linebacker because we were super thin there. It was like that was another guy we needed back at safety. Like, what are we doing? But the roster was just incomplete. Now we have way more to work with. We brought in Ray Thornton late just to come in and try to shore up some of that. But now I feel like not only do we have experience returning there, but we have just more talent, just way more talent at that safety position. And it's just the sigh of relief that I have there, especially with how Adrian Maddox performed over the spring and the rave reviews he got, and being able to see him in person. So, and having Sarad Bryant and Coach speak on Sarad and how physical he plays. You touched on physicality. We didn't have a lot of that. I always think back to UTSA at the 2 or 3 yard line when one of our linebackers got absolutely demolished by the running back from UTSA, and it was just kind of like, dude, we gotta look like an FCS team at points. So that won't be happening this year, especially with the addition like Tyjon Jones. So I'm happy about that. I did have a question. I didn't know where you was going to transition to. I saw a couple of commitment graphics from Miguel Patrick. Not commitment graphics, but the dragon emojis. That Tristan and Miguel and the staff does. So I saw Sione post, and I'm sitting here thinking like, who is it? I'm excited. I haven't seen an announcement, so this is where I kick it. If y'all have any thoughts, or maybe because obviously it looked like it could be on the defensive side. Me seeing Miguel Patrick thinking maybe a defensive lineman or two, maybe, you don't know. So I don't know if Chef Jimmy May can connect some dots and help us out here because it's driving me crazy. And like what John said, right when we get done and we're gonna see a commitment, I'm gonna be pissed off.
Well,
but I at least want to try to see if we can connect the dots and see who maybe it could be.
Before Chef Jimmy gives his thoughts, I got to talk to Tristan. If you're listening to this, man, we had to make sure that Kendrick Lamar ain't beefing with Drake or something like that, because he had thrown some other gifts or, up there. And I'm like, what, is this something? We were talking about in the chat. And then Darren was like, no, Kendrick and Drake are beefing about something. So, all right. Was it Kendrick and Drake?
Tristan is from the West Side. I don't see how y'all haven't seen this on y'all timeline. This is the only thing that's been on my timeline, right? I'm a big music head, big hip hop music head, whatever. I already kind of figured what he was posting that all those LA people, California West Side people, they're gonna ride or die with Kendrick. So that's all that was. Tristan, you can't be confusing us like that, man.
Yeah, please. Hey. Well, I take Kendrick's side too, though, because Drake canceled that concert was supposed to happen in April in Birmingham. He canceled it, so I got beef with Drake as well. So I might need to throw my mixtape out there. But Jimmy, all seriousness, going back to the recruiting, can you connect any dots, at least for the people that have hung around this far into the free show?
Yeah, we'll certainly try. So these are, by no means inside information, but just doing the normal routine here, looking at some social media activity. I sent John and Darian a list maybe 2 weeks ago, I think before we did our football recruiting, one of our football recruiting updates, and it was like 5 guys that I was looking at in particular. And one of those, if y'all look at one of my tweets from May 2nd, most of y'all probably didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But for any Grey's Anatomy fans out there, I don't know, speaking of Mother's Day, if any of your mothers or the mothers of your kids made you watch Grey's Anatomy, you see Derek Shepard posted a little GIF of Derek Shepard on May 2nd. So why don't we take this opportunity to talk about
Big Dreamy, yeah.
Hey, I tried to help the people. I threw a Skyline chili. Everybody knows that's from Cincinnati too. So I tried to throw something up for the great. if people don't like Grey's Anatomy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys have already stated, the graphics or the excitement, particular from Miguel Patrick, defensive line coach at UAB. And looking at a guy that, there's certainly been some interest in, as well as an offer out to, which is Derek Shepard Jr., 6'3", 300-pound defensive lineman from Cincinnati. He's been at Cincinnati, I should say, for 2 years. He redshirted in 2022. This past season, he played in 7 games, had 4 tackles, and he's picked up, some other good offers, and especially interest in entering the transfer portal. You look at like a South Alabama, Kansas State is a guy, or a program, I should say, that offered Jack Ubeck. UAB, Georgia State are the offers come out of the transfer portal. He's got 3 years left of eligibility, and come out of high school, he's someone that had like 20 plus offers. He was a number 1 defensive line high school player in the state of Ohio. And he was certainly highly touted just as a general recruit. He was a consensus 4-star recruit in that particular recruiting class. So he's someone that I would keep an eye on, and kind of looking around the defensive line. There's another guy from Ole Miss, that I'm curious how involved UAB is in his recruitment. I wouldn't be surprised to see UAB be the landing spot for DeMarcus Smith out of Ole Miss. He's been at Ole Miss for a few years now. And he's actually a Parker High School. He played at Parker High School, and that's a connection from what it seems and what it appears on social media that UAB football staff has tried to get in and network with Parker High School. He's got 2 years left, and he's another guy that out of high school really chose Ole Miss over a slew of teams, including Mississippi State, Kansas, Tennessee. So certainly a guy that's likely looking for more playing time, and that logical spot could be somewhere like UAB.
And I know we had one of the fans asking, I can't remember exactly who it was, but they were saying we need some defensive linemen. It's actually a very smart thing. You do need defensive linemen to apply pressure to help alleviate the pressure on the DBs to hold up for so long. Do y'all remember who that was? They were saying, like, what about the
Cedric Buchanan? Yeah, shout out. Yeah.
So there we go. So Cedric, there you go. There's some dots. We don't know if we got them, but we got somebody, right? And I'm assuming it's a D lineman. So shout out to you, man. Maybe the staff saw you writing comment under the Blaze of Victory and was like, Cedric, right? We need to get some of those linemen, man. So you pushed them to it. Shout out to you, man.
Yeah, Cedric knows, man. Hey, shout out Cedric, longtime Patreon supporter as well. Speaking of Patreon, patreon.com/blazerpod. We're still heating up, recruiting updates soon, football and basketball. What's going on with Eric Gaines?
Speculations.
Yes, but patreon.com/blazerpod. Only $5 a month, or you can prepay for a year and save 10%. But that's it, guys. Hey, shout out to Cahaba again for sponsoring this podcast. Y'all go down there, have a strawberry blonde. Let them know that you heard about them on the Blazer Victory podcast. But Darian, you want to send us out until next time?
Yes, sir. Blazer Nation, just blaze.